streaming video.
Is it turned on?
It's not plugged in, so probably not.
There you go.
No, it's just not plugged in.
Details.
It is now.
Detail.
Yeah, there you go.
Detail.
There we go, okay. The changes in this contract compared to the other night include identifying the intended use of the property, a few other minor issues, and then the primary issue was including a buyback clause for the city should Hunt Properties fail to develop the property or at least begin construction of a retail center on the property within 2 years. Happy to answer any questions about the contract or about the changes made.
Actually, Andrew, I've got several questions. One of them pertains to, do we have a termination clause where we can terminate the contract?
No, not between now and closing, no.
Between now and
I mean,
when?
we could terminate the contract, but we would lose, of course, any escrow money, but also the Hunt Properties could sue the city if it chose to. So, I mean, you can always terminate a contract,
So
but you risk.
there is no termination clause for us. There is for Hunt, but not for us.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm curious, too, one of the things that I've brought up a couple of times, and apparently didn't get much traction, is that when Hunt came to us with this proposal, the idea was that they wanted us to assist them in buying this property. And according to this agreement, we're going to end up buying the property, but they don't have to buy it from us. And not only do they not have to buy it from us, they don't even lose their earnest money. They've got absolutely nothing to lose in this agreement, and we have the potential for being stuck with $300 million worth of property that we don't really have any use for.
They would lose their earnest money for certain terminations.
Well,
But there-
only
but
if
there
they
are-
really wanted to.
But there are permitted terminations in this contract, that's correct. Yes.
So to me, if I was Hunt, I'd just be dancing a jig with this contract. It's an outstanding contract for them, but I don't think it's a good contract for us. And I can't vote for it, the way it's written.
The fact that you suggest that we're going to be stuck with properties without value is not true either.
No, I didn't say without value, but I said, it's not going to be of direct value to us. We're not going to build anything there.
It's not of direct value to Hunt either unless they purchase the property, because their profit is in the development and subsequent resale of the property. That's what they're in the business to do.
I understand all that.
And they have a proven track record here in town. They've developed 4 other properties, and this will be the biggest one today. They approached us to purchase this. I'm quite convinced they don't intend to back away from it.
They've certainly got plenty of provisions in here where they could.
Well, the property.
We also got several provisions from them as well, Commissioner.
What are they?
Property remains in Enid, whatever happens. And
I understand all that.
It's our decision.
I understand all that. I know where the property is, but to me, we have, very little to back them, to get them to do what we want them to do, and they've got a lot of things in here that get us to do things that would,
Well, you have about 4 million reasons for them to do what they would need to do once we sell it to them, and then it becomes up to them to develop it. We're simply acquiring and transferring the property. It's not the least bit unique in character, and it also retains all the development of sales tax development for the city of Enid.
And Ron, in addition, I mean, the contract that we looked at Tuesday didn't have teeth. This has more.
what are the teeth?
Well, one is that the biggest loophole they had, the biggest out they had in the prior draft of the contract was a right to terminate this agreement and keep the earnest money if they did not determine that the property was suitable for their intended use. Now, the biggest problem with that was their intended use wasn't defined. So they simply could have said, well, it doesn't meet our intended use. The biggest teeth that have been added to this, in addition to the option to purchase contract, is defining that intended use.
You feel like that the intended use is solid enough and well enough described that where they can't back out of it?
Well, I will never say that they can't back out of it because I know attorneys are creative, but I will say the intended use is defined as a even narrower intended use, meaning so So let me put it this way. The intended use intends to develop a property into a Class A retail center with at least 75,000 square feet. That's their intended use. For them to back out and be able to keep the earnest money, they would have to make a good faith claim that the property we're putting together was not sufficient to do a 75,000 square foot Class A retail space. Now,
Or
I
if
think
if they found any problems with it, such as environmental issues.
well, and that's absolutely accurate, but those environmental issues, we have an opportunity to remediate them. Meaning that if they discover an environmental issue, say that there's something wrong with the gas station, I don't know if there is or isn't, we have an opportunity to remediate that, and that's fairly standard in real estate purchasing. The intended use is actually better for us the way it's defined, because I think they want to do well over 75,000 square feet of space. But for them to be able to keep the earnest money and back out of the contract, they'd have to show that it was totally insufficient for even 75,000 square feet of retail space, which would be a really hard row to hoe. I mean, that would be tough. The way the property is, where it is, assuming that we get it put together and, acquired, that would be a hard claim for them to make. So I know there are lots of outs, and lots of their outs and loopholes are actually pretty standard in real estate purchasing contracts of this type, where, if it's a nuclear waste site, they get out of that. Yeah, I mean, we're stuck holding it.
Well,
So there's some risk.
I understand, where if you were a property owner and you just wanted to sell it to somebody, that you give them all of these options. But we're actually acquiring it just for them at a great expense to us.
So we will be
And to
made
me,
whole with those
changes
expenses.
That changes the arrangement a bit.
Oh, certainly, and you can't deny that this is not just a normal transaction. I mean, we are assuming a lot of risk for this. Now, we're assuming that risk with open eyes, going in with the hope that at the end of the day, we have a really phenomenal Class A retail establishment that's going to generate enough sales tax revenue to well offset the potential risk we're incurring here.
We had
And you're
this-
right, we're gambling.
We
But,
had the same situation with the Homeland property.
and I think this is an even
It's
better
on a
deal
smaller
for that.
scale, granted.
Yes, and you remember how that ended up.
Yes, it looks nice today.
Well, it looks nice today, but we actually, they had agreed to pay us a certain amount of money, and we didn't get that. And I know eventually we'll get our money back and all that stuff, but to me, I want a contract that they'll stick to and execute the way it's written. I'm also curious, Andrew, at what date do we think that this thing will close?
This will close, the closing is after the city obtains the properties. And they have 60 days to review the property after we have obtained the properties. Let me go to that section.
60 or 120?
Well, they have 60, and then they get an additional 60 if they need it to close.
To me, it's November the 15th.
Well, because, Bill, I don't think that'd be quite right, because we actually have more time to acquire the
do.
property now.
Right.
One of the provisions that Andrea included, the initial acquisition period ended at June 30th.
June 30th. Okay.
And we
Right.
now have an additional 5-month period at our discretion to extend that acquisition period without having to go back to Hunt for permission to
Which
do
is
it.
November 30th.
So November
Right.
30th, and then tack on
So
an
it
additional
could be
120 days to
120
that.
days past that.
Do we think that we can actually acquire this property by next June?
Well, if we don't, we can extend that until
I
November.
understand that, but I mean, do we think we can do it? I'm assuming that there was some reason why that date was put in there.
Well, we're making every effort to do that, Commissioner.
I-
I don't have a crystal ball in more than you do, but yes, we're making every effort to acquire the property.
And we know what the property is. Have we actually gotten agreements from most of the property owners? How is that coming along?
We have agreements for 7 of them. right now.
Say that again.
We have agreements with 7 of them.
How many more are we in ongoing negotiation with?
Right now, they're in ongoing negotiations with 16 active right now? Right, but not all of them are active, though. I think probably they're working actively about 7 of them right now.
Okay.
They're expecting,
53 total properties.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not actively working all of them at the same time.
Taking
But when I
about-
spoke with Bud earlier today, he's expecting maybe one of them back today or Monday, so.
I'll move approval.
Second.
A motion by David.
Second.
There's,
Second by Tammy.
second by
There's someone
Tammy.
signed up to
Somebody signed.
speak.
Hit the wrong key on my pad. We do have a person signed up to discuss to speak on this item. But we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, Tammy seconded.
Go ahead, please.
Ms. Davis, Ms. Atchison, if you would identify yourself and your address.
Sure. Vivian Atchison, 3602 Dana Drive. I'm here representing my mother, Winnie Mae Fenimore, whose barbershop is located at 611 South Cleveland in the Lahoma Courts area. I guess one thing I was curious of why the city is selling this property for $550,000 when their property, when the assessor stated it might be worth $2 to $3 million. The city and Westside Builders, who owns, I think, about 49% of Lahoma Courts, can sell their property for under current value because they hope to benefit from increased taxes for the city and shoppers for the Sunset Plaza Shopping Center. In real current dollars, they are also making a 10% cost bump up for the city and a realtor's commission. However, I want it noted for the record that the contemplated underpriced sale by the city does not establish a real value for other non-selling property owners. I understand the concept that this is business, but do not use this for pretense that this is a blighted area to devalue property values or for future legal action that for those owners that do not wish to sell. Today's opinion section in the newspaper and others have referred to the Lahoma Courts area as blighted. According to the businessdictionary.com, blighted area is defined as an area of a city, often a large metropolitan city, in which most buildings are abandoned or in severe disrepair. My mother's property is not blighted, and I am deeply offended that her property and others in this area is being described in this manner. If we use this definition as the majority of land to deem it a blighted area, that would be Westside Builders and the city of Enid, who are the majority owners. I think that they should also be offended that their property is being described as blighted. If this area is so blighted, where are the citations and cleanup campaigns for the offending property owners? My parents bought this property 22 years ago. My mother has had her barbershop in this location for 22 years. It's a nice-looking building. My father, who's now deceased, lovingly fixed up this shop for her, the lighting, the layout, all to her specifications. It has worked for her all these years and continues to do so. Until my mother is ready to retire, and that is not anytime soon, there is no reason for her to move from this location. Any willing seller can sell to the city for this development. That's their business. My mother does not wish to sell and welcomes the developer to build around her property. And I appreciate for the time to make these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by David, a second by Tammy. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 5-2. Item 3, consider approval and execution of real estate purchase and sale agreement with Hunt Properties, Inc. of Dallas, Texas, for the sale of the fire station and park property located in Lahoma Addition for $550,000. Andrea?
Mayor, Commissioners, the same changes were made to this contract as were on the last contract. In addition to that, the developer has increased the purchase price to $550,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by David, second by Tammy. Further discussion?
Did we get that one note changed?
Yes.
Okay. Just reference, right?
What was that?
There was just a typo. The buyer's intended use was
Referring to a,
referring to a different article, and Andrea's need to fix it.
Fix it, yeah.
Right, right.
That's it.
Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Item 4, we will now adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. All of the trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority are in attendance at this special meeting. Item 6, the Enid Economic Development Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 1 under 6.1, remove from the table and consider approval and execution of real estate purchase and sale agreement with Hunt Properties, Inc., Dallas, Texas.
Move approval, or move remove from the table.
second.
Motion by David, second by Tammy. Discussion, please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-1.
Now move approval for execution of the contract.
Sorry, David, I need to read that first.
I was just removing it from the table the first time.
Is this
Oh,
is this phrased properly? It's all down here in my agenda in one item.
Under item 6, we just
Two.
removed it.
We gotta remove one and approve it, and then we gotta remove two and approve it. So there's 2 motions for each.
And he just made the
So I think
motion to
I'm just still on
approve the
number
second
1.
part.
And that's the approval of the actual execution of the real estate contract for the land.
I seconded that.
So we need to vote on that, and then we'll move to 2.
Okay.
Is that right? Okay.
Motion by David. Tammy, did you make the
I
second?
did.
Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-1. Now we should be ready for item 2.
Yes, sir.
Keep me on track.
Which you haven't read yet.
Do what?
Which you haven't read yet.
Yes. Remove from the table and consider approval and execution of real estate purchase and sales agreement with Hunt Properties, Inc. of Dallas, Texas for the sale of the fire station and park property located in Oklahoma Addition for $550,000.
Make a motion, we remove it from the table.
Second.
Motion by David, second by Tammy. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0.
I make a motion, we approve the execution of the real estate purchase and sale agreement with Hunt Properties for the fire station property.
Second.
Motion by David, second by Tammy.
Excuse me.
Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Do we need to go back into the city council? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Ben,
Second.
second by Aaron. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.